Less than 5% of the ocean has been explored by humans. Beneath our feet lies a world more mysterious than outer space. Within the endless deep sea lurks the bizarre, the unknown, the ancient and even terrifying creatures. Today, I'll take you to face the fears of the deep sea, venturing into the abyss to uncover the secrets of Earth's deepest reaches. Our journey begins above the waves at the sea level. Plunging into the water, we enter the epipelagic zone. It is sometimes called the sunlight zone, because a large amount of sunlight penetrates the water. At about 40 meters below the surface, about 40 meters below the sea surface, we begin to see giant kelp forests. The underwater jungles of seagrass and kelp not only provide food and habitat for various marine life, they also contribute up to 70% of the Earth's oxygen. Diving another 6 meters, we arrive at the ideal environment for coral thriving. Although corals look like rocky plants, they are actually animals closely related to jellyfish. It is estimated there are about 5 trillion coral polyps globally, building vibrant coral reefs. Many shallow water fish call this area home, such as the clownfish and butterfly fish. However, the shallow nature of these waters can also bring danger. Shallow water predators like birds, seals, and even polar bears can reach this depth. Thus, many fish only swim here to feed, and then head to deeper waters. Fish such as tuna, flying fish, and herring tend to stay in the epipelagic zone for long periods. These are the fish commonly eaten by humans. Descending to about 60 meters deep, we encounter the king crab. The depth where these little pincers live is just right, as they are not only fished by humans, but also preyed upon by walruses, octopuses, and even sea otters. Oh well, who can resist such deliciousness? Descending to about 80 meters, we might spot the Cygnus crab, swan crab. This peculiar, small crustacean swims underwater by flapping its abdominal appendages. Although more agile, these little guys still stay within a few dozen meters of home. At about 90 meters below the surface lies the wreck of the HMHS Britannic. This is the sister ship of the Titanic, which sank in 1916, 6 kilometers off the coast of Kia Island. This happened just 3 years after the Titanic sank. Sinking seems to be the fate of this family. However, of the two ships, the Britannic wreck is much better preserved. This 53,200-ton behemoth has rested on the seabed for over 100 years. Its depth is also shallow enough for divers to visit. In fact, many shipwrecks cannot pass the epipelagic zone, as they often get stuck on rocks or rest on the shallow seafloor. Descending to about 130 meters, we reach the average diving depth of sea otters. However, they can dive as deep as almost 280 meters. Even so, this average diving depth is roughly equivalent to the height of the Great Pyramid of Giza. Diving slightly beyond 150 meters deep, we arrive at the preferred depth of the iconic green sea turtle. These creatures make the lower part of the epipelagic zone their home. However, like many marine creatures, they can dive much deeper if they choose to. If they continue to descend, they might encounter the oarfish, living at about 180 meters deep. This legendary silverfish has a long, flat, snake-like body. As you can see, their length is astonishing. The longest recorded individual measured 11 meters from head to tail. Yet, like many large marine animals, they feed on krill and plankton. The depth they inhabit is comparable to the height of the Space Needle. Further down, the deeper water is called the mesopelagic zone, also known as the twilight zone. This area stretches from 200 meters below the surface down to 1,000 meters. It gets its name from the gradual transition of the water from bright to dim. The deeper we dive, the darker the light becomes. The mesopelagic zone is also the busiest area of the ocean, at least in terms of weight. Nearly 90% of marine life resides here. Of course, at this depth, one of the first residents we encounter is the great white shark. These apex predators typically lurk about 200 meters below the surface. They can travel at speeds up to 40 kilometers per hour and can smell a bleeding creature 5 kilometers away. If they wish, they can dive to a depth of 6,300 meters. So, don't think going deeper is safer. Descending to 253 meters, we surpassed the deepest human freediving record. This record was set by Herbert Nitsch, who, without oxygen tanks, with the help of a pioneering torpedo device, rapidly descended to this depth. This gave him enough time to return to the surface, all while holding his breath and fighting 25 atmospheres of pressure. At this depth, pressure affects almost every body cavity. The lungs, for example, eardrums and sinuses. Descending to 300 meters, we reached the maximum diving depth for common dolphins. However, we will find that other cetaceans dive much deeper. Descending to 332 meters, a depth higher than the Eiffel Tower. We also reach the deepest point ever achieved by human scuba diving. 2014 Ahmed Gaber achieved this feat with the help of a diving team. Throughout the dive, the support team would assist him at different depths. This is because of Gaber, unable to efficiently carry the multiple oxygens required to go back and forth. Another human diving milestone appears at 400 meters. This is the depth reached by the first spherical deep-sea submersible, designed in 1930. This spherical submersible was a hollow steel sphere weighing about 2,000 kilograms, about 2 meters in diameter, lowered and raised from a ship via a cable. It was designed by the zoologist William Beebe and the engineer Otis Barton. Despite the cramped interior and difficult operation, these two men still descended to a depth previously unprecedented. Descending to about 450 meters deep, a depth equivalent to the height of the Empire State Building. As we continue deeper into the ocean, light is scattered and absorbed by water molecules. This means the deeper we dive, the dimmer the light becomes. Creatures below this depth often evolve to have increasingly larger eyes, such as the big eye tuna. The structure of these eyes is designed to absorb as much as possible the scarce light in the dim ocean. Descending to 564 meters, we encounter an unexpected visitor, the emperor penguin. Their average diving depth in the ocean is about 100 to 300 meters, but the deepest recorded dive reached 564 meters. This depth is also the current deepest diving record among birds. They are much more graceful in the water than on land, swimming up to 14.3 kilometers per hour, more than 5 times their walking speed on land. This means these penguins can dive deeper and faster. Descending to about 580 meters deep, we encounter one of the world's least palatable fish, the ocean sunfish, mola mola. It can grow up to 3 meters long, and its height from fin to fin can reach 4 meters. It can weigh over 2,200 kilograms. However, they lack a swim bladder, which is the organ that allows many fish to float vertically in the water. The sunfish has poor control, is massive and moves slowly. This makes some marine biologists wonder how they evolved to this point. It's simply a natural oddity. Descending to about 600 meters deep, we encounter the spider crab. This is a creepy crustacean. Although the carapace of the Japanese spider crab is only 30 centimeters, its long legs can span an amazing 4 meters. To withstand the pressure of nearly 61 atmospheres at this depth, which is equivalent to 115 elephants standing on it. The crab's organs are protected by an extremely hard exoskeleton. Its internal structure has almost no cavities. Therefore, compared to its smaller counterparts in the epipelagic zone, these crabs resemble a monster, both in appearance and internal structure. As we continue descending to 700 meters, our sighting list switches from spider to sea wolf, wolf eel. But don't worry, unlike the land wolf, the sea wolf is actually quite beautiful, with various fascinating colors and patterns. It's believed that sea wolves evolved bright and striking colors as a defense mechanism, because at this depth, being a conspicuous presence is actually a deterrent. This is because most predators assume if a creature doesn't try to hide itself, it is either dangerous or venomous. Descending to 900 meters deep, we reach the upper limit of the anglerfish's activity. These bizarre, flattened predators lie motionless on the seabed, waiting for prey to be lured by their oscillating lure. In the stomachs of these greedy creatures, animals ranging from ducks to sea otters have been found. Despite the remarkably ugly appearance of the anglerfish and its ability to survive in considerable ocean depths, Its flesh is sweet and firm, so it is considered a delicacy in certain parts of Europe and Asia. At this depth, we are already deeper than the world's tallest building, the Burj Khalifa. But we are still very far from the seabed. Descending to about 1,000 meters, the mysterious giant squid swims in this area. These legendary deep-sea behemoths can weigh up to over 540 kilograms, with the longest recorded individual measuring an astonishing 14 meters long. Shockingly, even today, living giant squids are rarely discovered. So most of what we know about them comes from examining their carcasses. The giant squid perfectly exemplifies deep-sea gigantism, which means the deeper marine invertebrates live, the larger they tend to be. The cause of this phenomenon remains a mystery, but researchers suggest because water temperatures at these depths are extremely low, the creature's metabolism is much slower. This allows them to live longer and grow larger. The diamondback squid, living about 300 meters shallower than the giant squid, typically measures around 1.5 meters long, while the common squid living closer to the surface is usually less than 30 centimeters long. Continuing our descent, we reach the Erie bathypelagic zone, also known as the midnight zone. Here, almost no sunlight reaches this area. It extends from a depth of 1,000 meters, all the way down to about 4,000 meters deep. To survive in the pitch-black environment, many creatures at this depth possess the characteristic of bioluminescence. This means they can produce light from their own organs, such as the scruffy deep-sea anglerfish, which is also often mistakenly called the lanternfish, due to its unique appearance. This terrifyingly toothed fish can be found at about 1,100 meters below the surface. They use a glowing fishing rod on their head to lure unsuspecting prey. Once a small fish swims close enough, it is torn to shreds by their terrifying mouths. Furthermore, their reproductive habits are among the most bizarre in the animal kingdom. The female deep-sea anglerfish can grow up to 1.5 meters, while the male is often only the size of a fly. For reproduction, the male bites onto and attaches to the female, slowly integrating into the female's body parasitically, fertilizing the eggs at the same time. Finally, the male becomes a mere appendage of the female. Its body gradually degenerates, losing the ability to live independently, entirely relying on the female for nutrients, and living and dying with the female. This reproductive habit truly demonstrates how bizarre the creatures of the deep sea are. Descending to 1,200 meters, bearing a pressure of about 115 atmospheres, we encounter the one-of-a-kind internet celebrity, the blobfish. Its scientific name is more accurately Psychroliths marcitus. You might recognize the blobfish from some mukbang videos. And in some photos, it looks like the most miserable creature on Earth. But I must plead for this poor blobfish. Pictures of the blobfish are usually taken after it has been brought up. The reason it looks distorted is because it naturally has a soft, gelatinous body, which relies on the high pressure of the deep sea to maintain its shape. The blobfish contains trimethylamine N oxide, a substance that helps protect its proteins from breaking down under extreme pressure. It is suited to live in deep-sea environments with over 100 atmospheres of pressure. Like the ocean sunfish, the blobfish lacks a swim bladder. Once brought to shallow water or the surface, its body collapses and deforms due to the release of pressure. This is what its close relative, the smoothhead blobfish, looks like in its natural habitat. While it's not exactly beautiful, it looks much more decent than the blobfish's viral photo. As we dive into deeper parts of the ocean, due to the lack of sunlight, the skin transparency of marine life becomes increasingly high. This reduces the production of melanin, which is one of the compounds used by fish and mammals to produce skin pigmentation. However, transparency is also an effective adaptation for evading predators. But there's an interesting exception, a red creature. This is because red is the first color to disappear from the visible spectrum at these depths. This means that in this deep sea, a fully red creature is almost invisible. A good example is the big red jellyfish. It lives at about 1,500 meters deep. This bulbous, jelly-like creature can grow to over 1 meter in diameter. Despite its large size, its red color in this dim deep sea makes it difficult for predators to spot. However, at 1,600 meters deep, the situation is completely reversed. Here swims the fascinating glass squid. Its body is almost completely transparent. The glass squid's body surface is covered with tiny pigment sacs called chromatophores. By contracting these pigment sacs, they can make their body translucent like a ghost, thereby hiding themselves in the deep sea. Even in easily exposed locations like the eyes, they emit a faint light to mask shadows, further eliminating their presence. Descending to about 1,800 meters, we pass the six-gill shark swimming in the opposite direction. These unique sharks are special because they have a very regular routine. During the day, they stay in the bathypelagic zone. However, at night, they swim to shallower waters to feed, and can be seen in waters as shallow as 90 meters deep. Theoretically, sharks do this because they prefer cooler water temperatures. So, when the sun sets and the shallow water temperature drops, they swim there to forage. And when these waters start to warm up, they dive back into the deep sea to digest and conserve energy. It seems their routine is much more disciplined than mine. Descending to about 1,900 meters deep, magnificent colors are still drifting in the dark. This magical creature is Halotrophs mossi. Due to its spectacular bioluminescence, it is called the fireworks jellyfish. There is currently no official Chinese name for it. Little is known about this mysterious creature. The fireworks jellyfish has been sighted only a dozen times in recorded history. This is in stark contrast to the jellyfish found in the epipelagic zone. We only know that it has never been found in waters above 1,200 meters. However, this mysterious creature also reminds us, even common creatures like jellyfish can become increasingly bizarre in the deep sea. 2,100 meters below the surface is the location of most hydrothermal vents on Earth. Hydrothermal vents are cracks in the seabed that emit natural gas and heat the surrounding seawater. Some hydrothermal vents can reach temperatures up to 370 degrees Celsius. This is extremely dangerous for most marine life. But for some peculiar creatures, like the Yeti crab, they are not afraid at all. The bodies of these strange crustaceans are covered in a thick layer of fuzz. They stay near the hydrothermal vents and feed on the bacteria that thrive in the warm water and attach to their bodies. It's like farming food on themselves. Descending to about 2,400 meters deep, we encounter a truly unique creature, the barrel-eye fish. Notably, this fish's body is opaque, but its head is translucent. The pair of bright green eyes in the center of its head can rotate completely. This means the barrel-eye fish can look through its own head, while looking out for food and predators. Its eyes and brain are protected by a transparent fluid. But one can imagine, this still makes this bizarre fish quite vulnerable. Now entering a particularly eerie region of the ocean, we encounter three spine-chilling deep-sea residents. Swimming at 2,600 meters deep is the ferocious ghost shark, also known as the chimera. This unsettling-looking creature was only discovered in 2002, despite being estimated to have existed for over 360 million years. Despite having shark in its name, the ghost shark is not actually a shark. In fact, their teeth are not even sharp. Instead, they have blunt, flat dental plates, better suited for crushing food than tearing it apart. Descending to 2,800 meters deep, we encounter the terrifying gulper eel. Although they appear small at first glance, these predators quietly approach unsuspecting prey in the dark, then open their huge, elastic jaws and swallow it whole. And surprisingly, the gulper eel can swallow creatures larger than itself. After swallowing prey, the prey is sent into a second spherical protruding stomach. This stomach acts like a terrifying cage, where the prey is stored until digested. Descending to 2,900 meters deep, we encounter the last of these three terrifying creatures, the vampire squid. This cephalopod has barely changed over the past 300 million years. The tip of each of its deep red tentacles has an organ that emits a pale blue light. This makes it a visually stunning animal. It was recently discovered that the vampire squid primarily feeds on a substance called marine snow, but this name is not as romantic as it sounds. Marine snow actually refers to dead organic matter that drifts down to these depths from the upper water layers. This means the vampire squid likely feeds on the remnants of creatures it has never seen. Descending to 2,992 meters, we reach the maximum diving depth for most marine mammals, such as Cuvier's beaked whale. Although Cuvier's beaked whale spends most of its time in waters above 300 meters, it can dive nearly 3 kilometers deep. It is known to stay underwater for up to 222 minutes. It's believed that it can do this by adopting an aerobic metabolism, combined with an extremely energy-efficient diving strategy. Simply put, it prolongs the use of oxygen with an extremely low metabolic rate. Now, let's accelerate our descent to a depth of 3,700 meters. This depth is the limit of habitat for the vast majority of marine life on Earth. Darkness and cold engulf this place, as sunlight can no longer reach it. This depth is also equivalent to the height of 8 main towers of the Chongqing Landmark Tower vertically stacked. Near the seabed of the bathypelagic zone, 3,800 meters below the surface, we arrive at the wreck of the Titanic. This colossal ship has rested on the seabed for over 110 years. It weighed 52,310 tons. And its builder, White Star Line, once claimed it was unsinkable. However, as is well known, this was not the case. The Titanic sank on April 14, 1912, after hitting an iceberg, plunging all the way into this cold deep sea. There were 2,240 passengers and crew on board, with only 706 survivors. However, few of the victims made it to this isolated final resting place with the ship, as the natural buoyancy of the human body is much greater than the buoyancy of this 52,000 tons of metal. But we will not stop here. We must dive even deeper, beyond the resting place of the Titanic. So let's continue our descent, starting from 4,000 meters, which is nearly 5 kilometers deep. We enter the abyssal zone. Imagine straightening out the entire Zhuhai International Circuit and extending it vertically downwards. And you can roughly imagine the starting depth of this water. Traversing the abyssal zone, you will not only feel the pressure of over 400 atmospheres, but also encounter icy cold water and complete darkness. Yet, despite this nearly uninhabitable environment, life still finds a way to survive in it. Many people assume that the creatures living in these waters are all ugly monsters. But this is not the case. The first resident we meet here is quite cute. At about 4,300 meters deep, we see the adorable Dumbo octopus. These creatures are named for the 2 ear-like fins on top of their heads. They can flap these fins to aid in swimming. These fins make them look like Dumbo, flying by flapping its ears in the Disney cartoon. They indeed need this extra mobility. Dumbo octopuses lack the ink sac that many other octopuses possess. This is because most creatures produce ink to conceal themselves while escaping predators. And the abyssal zone is already pitch black, so ink is useless. Descending to 4,600 meters deep, the peculiar sea pig, sea cucumber, gently swims past you. These strange worm-like creatures are almost impossible to classify. Although they are classified as sea cucumbers, they have evolved the ability to soar in the water by wiggling their bodies. Oh, don't even think about eating them. Despite having the word pig in their name, sea pigs are simple marine animals, not vegetables that can be casually picked. Even if you wanted to eat them, these fragile creatures cannot withstand the turmoil. Once removed from the deep sea pressure they are adapted to, when brought to the surface, it will directly disintegrate. Continuing our descent to about 4,900 meters deep, here lives the bizarre tripod fish. This small fish has 3 long, slender, stilt-like fins that it relies on to support itself on the seabed. This means the tripod fish is not only one of the few fish that can stand, but also one of the few creatures on Earth that can be considered tripedal. These stilts can reach about 90 centimeters long, but the fish itself is only about 30 centimeters long. This is truly a case of long legs. It's believed that it stands on these legs to conserve energy, as there are almost no ocean currents at this depth, and some marine creatures hover about 1 meter above the seabed. This way, it can use the slowly moving currents to guide small shrimp and other plankton downstream into its open mouth, easily capturing prey. It truly achieves the state of having food delivered to its mouth. However, the abyssal zone is not the deepest part of the ocean we will explore this time. Next is the hadal zone. Starting from 600 meters below the surface, it mainly consists of deep-sea trenches. Creatures living at these depths are often structurally simple, such as a small mollusk living on rocks, the chitin. But there are exceptions. At 7,200 meters deep, we discover the amazing deep-sea jellyfish. This creature is so beautiful it seems out of place, more like an alien creature. And despite having the word jellyfish in its name, they are not true jellyfish. They are a unique species that has barely changed for nearly 500 million years. I suppose this might be the result of being trapped in the darkness. Descending to 7,600 meters deep, we arrive at the entrance to the Mariana Trench. This is the entrance to the deepest known ocean trench globally. On January 23, 1960, explorers Don Walsh and Jacques Picard reached this point. Like us, these two men also wanted to know how deep the ocean was. So they assembled a research team and built their deep-sea submersible, the Trieste. The Trieste was about 15 meters long and 3.3 meters wide. However, throughout the descent, the two men had to stay in a cramped pressure sphere. They descended all the way through the epipelagic zone, the mesopelagic zone, the bathypelagic zone, entered the abyssal zone, and finally reached the dark trench. 12 people have walked on the moon in history. But even today, only 3 people have ventured into the deepest part of the seabed, known as the Challenger Deep. At a depth of 8,900 meters, their position at this moment was deeper than the height of Mount Everest. Then, at 9,700 meters, a viewport cracked under the pressure of 969 atmospheres. They knew it was too late to turn back, so they chose to continue the descent. After 4 hours and 47 minutes, they finally succeeded. At 10,984 meters deep, in an environment of 1086 atmospheres, the Trieste landed on the bottom of the Challenger Deep. And all this happened only 30 years after the first deep-sea submersible was invented in 1929. Humans did not return here for the next 52 years. Throughout this video, I used buildings, racetracks, and mountains to help you understand the ocean's depth. However, at a depth of 10,984 meters, there is nothing left to compare it to. So, how deep is the ocean? Strictly speaking, in the known ocean, there is no place deeper than this. So, congratulations, esteemed future billionaires. You have now successfully reached the deepest point of the ocean and the Earth, the Mariana Trench.